Good morning. This is Rich Shlofmitz. I'm here with Mike Francesa. I don't think he needs any introduction. He's been talking a lot about this on the radio, not what he's usually talking about. And today he was nice enough to talk with us. And, basically, I know Mike for many years, and he's a great guy, really very generous person. But Mike, your industry has totally changed in just a month. All the people, you're not talking about current sports, so you're talking about past things, you're talking about what the future brings for these people. If you could give the audience some idea of what everybody's experiencing.
Well, Doc, I think, first of all, pleasure to be here. Like every other industry, ours has been turned upside down. Two industries. The broadcast industry has been stopped cold. There's no advertising. So most of us have either we're doing shows for free, or we're actually taking reductions just to help out our companies in the time, because their advertising has been cut by 90% in most cases. Very few advertisers still advertising, because very few are connecting with their products right now. In the world of sports, there's a couple of things that have happened. Obviously, they have to deal with security of their athletes, keeping their athletes healthy, and also the idea of what's going to happen when they come back, as far as being able to produce their performances in front of crowds. Should they come back just for TV? Has been discussed in a lot of places. Can they keep their players safe? Can they keep the colony of players sequestered and safe? And then the bigger question, if we open up slowly to the economy and to everyday life again, how comfortable will people be to go back into stadiums, into arenas? The first poll showed that 62% of people who consider themselves ardent fans said they would not go back until there was a vaccine. And 72% who consider themselves just regular fans, they said they wouldn't come back. So that's an alarming number. So sports faces a very, very big uphill battle to get back to normal. And frankly, I don't think a lot of our walks of life will be normal until we have some drug that we can feel confident about. I don't think it has to be a vaccine where we get a vaccination. I think if we could feel, Doc, someone like me could feel that if we could have normal remedies, where if I got sick, I'd run to you, you'd patch me up and put me back into circulation. Can I get to a position where I feel like that's the case, where I can run to you and you have some way to get me back healthy again? Right now, there's a fear that you can't do that.
Absolutely. So, like, you bring up some good points. One is, when a vaccine's out, it's going to give us confidence. But also, if we know that you had testing available to say, hey, I had the virus, I'm safe to go out there. I think, one thought, and I'm sure other people have discussed this, is if I owned a team and I wanted to put that team out on the field, what I would do is I would test every player or everybody coming in who's in the industry, and test them to make sure they're negative. If they're not, send them out. So that would guarantee you that if you had a football team playing another football team, no one would affect each other there. So that's the issue of getting athletes back. I think that's easily done, to get testing on everyone coming in. The hard part is the fans. And I think your points are great. I know personally, I like watching sports on TV to begin with. It's going to be a real challenge to get people to want to go back into a stadium. Does the stadium offer everyone a mask and gloves? Would people go back then? But I think you hit it right on the head. And I don't know if we could do it technology-wise. If I knew that, we talk about different medications we're giving now that may or may not work, and it's all speculation. But if I knew there were 2 pills I could give Mike that, God forbid you came down with this, you're not going to die from it, it would let everyone go back with a clear head. I don't know if we have that. And it may be a long challenge over the next year to get that industry, the sport industry, back, which is so critical to so many people. It's not just the athletes, it's the vendors, it's the people bringing things, the ticket takers, the guy who's seating you. It's just amazing how many people it affects.
And Doc, it's not just sports. It's going to be theater. It's going to be concerts. It's going to be even the movies on the weekend. People aren't going to be comfortable even going into the movie theater. What about Broadway, where that you sit basically shoulder to shoulder in those small Broadway theaters where room is so expensive? So, I mean, places like that, Broadway has already canceled into the middle of May. I think the biggest issue is, as we go forward, and it's a very tough question, when we think about reopening, is can we create a level of normalcy where the average people can feel safe. Do you see already a big difference in the last week in the
So,
metropolitan area? And then the death numbers are still very high, but do you see a lot fewer cases now?
so we've been talking since this started. We've communicated. We've had a
Right.
lot of really good talks together. And things, as I told you, change every day, and they have been changing every day. I've had, just terrible experiences where I'm seeing death, which I never saw before, and separations of families. But on a positive note, I just checked our census, and we were afraid that we were going to have a surge where we have the ability to open a garage into a makeshift hospital. We haven't had to use that. And although people are still dying, our discharges are greater than our admissions. So what you're hearing on the news is accurate, that maybe we're at a plateau. The danger of that is if we let our guard down too soon, are we going to get a second spike? I think realistically, there's a point where the economy versus safety is going to be an issue that, as the president said, is the most important decision he's making. And putting politics 100% aside, whatever decision anyone makes on that is a difficult decision that you can't second guess because there's no right answer. And there's so many different things that are involved. But I would guess sometime in May is when we're going to start going back to engaging people.
Do you have as someone who has a lot more information and understands this a lot better than I do, or the normal people do you have a very real fear that if we come back and just begin fairly normal life with some safety provisions thrown in, but people are going to be on buses and trains and subways and the like, do you fear there could be a groundswell that would equal or surpass the first wave?
Such a complicated question because, the more people that get, the more people that get this virus, the more people when they recover are protected.
Right.
And I certainly wouldn't state, hey, everybody should get infected because 98% are going to be fine, because the 2% number is insane in terms of complications. But the reality is that this is a virus that really spreads, and a lot of people are going to get it, and a lot of people are going to be able to get back safely to engage. So I think the answer, we've talked about this before, is testing beforehand and testing antibodies afterwards. I think I saw on the news, there's a finger stick to test for antibodies to show that you've been infected. Wow, wouldn't that be great if we could get that for everybody? And if you and I knew that we were infected, oh, I was sick 2 weeks ago, I don't know if it was bad or not, and I could go back. So I think the answer to get everybody comfortable is testing.
Is that reasonable, Doc? Can we get enough tests to do that?
That's going to be a challenge, but the more we get and the more industry, instead of focusing on certain things, we should be focusing on testing before and after. That's the real answer until the vaccine or a pill is out there, is to give you comfort. Look, if I had a restaurant and all 10 employees had antibodies, I could open up, I'm a COVID-free restaurant, and if you are not infected or you've had antibodies, I'm going to feel comfortable going there. So that's the way to slowly introduce it, in my opinion. And I don't know how quickly it'll take for industry to get that out there, but that's what I would focus on.
Doc, first of all, you should be commended for the work you're doing with this. This is a very good idea. Number two, I worry about the hospitals because I know the hospitals work on such tough economic issues and such margins, and you've had to cut out such elective surgery and stop what you've been doing. Plus, you've been overrun with the amount of overtime and extra people and everything else. The hospitals must be in a tough place right now.
All the hospitals are. You bring up a great point. And the purpose of this whole thing is to try to raise money for hospitals on Long Island. We're really hit hard. Hospitals make money on cardiac procedures in general. Cardiac surgery, electrophysiology, angioplasty. Those are procedures where the reimbursement's pretty good for a hospital and the length of stay is small. Historically, when we have people in the ICUs who are sick with non-cardiac issues, those are loss leaders. You don't make any money on that. So we were, let's say, 97% cardiology a month ago. Now we're 85% non-cardiology, and our staff is working overtime where the hospital administrators are paying people, for overtime, double time. And we have a run on these PPE things, that masks, gowns, gloves, that we never had the need for that volume.
And now you're paying extra for them.
And just think about antibiotics. We have all these people intubated. They need to be sedated and they need to be relaxed.
Ugh.
those are not medications we use that much, and we're going to run out of those eventually if we don't get that. So it's just our whole process changed from a cardiac center to now taking care of this viral center, and the cost is just amazing. But our administration, as well as other hospitals around Long Island, they're doing everything they can to do the right thing. It really is something to be proud of.
Doc, one last one from me is, do you think your hospital has to look normal before we reopen the economy? Do you have to look like a regular hospital again, or can you do it when you're not at normal strength or you're not at normal conditions?
So unfortunately, this is like a movie that's a sci-fi movie where you hear an asteroid or something's coming, and we're living it, but it doesn't seem real yet, right?
Right.
We're in the middle of it, and it's some of the sun. Like, when are they going to shut this channel off?
Right.
But we all heard the new word, the new normal, and there's going to be a new normal. So hospitals, at least our hospital, are looking at how we're going to isolate to give people comfort that if you come to the hospital, you're not going to die. And that's the worst fear. People say, what happened to, I saw an article, what happened to all the heart disease? What happened to GI bleeds? What happened to heart failure, right? Well, if you look at the numbers, there's a tremendous increase in heart attacks, people dying outside the hospital. Because if I say to a patient, come to the hospital, that's the last place in the world anyone wants to go to now. So your point is well taken. We need to make a hospital a safe haven again, not one where you're going to get sick and infected. And we have plans for that. We will eventually, when we have the testing, isolate. Anyone coming into our hospital can be tested. You're negative, you go into the main hospital. If you're positive, you go into the viral section. So that's going to have to happen across the board. You need to make people safe to go back to hospitals. Yes.
Will every hospital from now on have a viral section?
I can't speak for other hospitals, but just common sense tells me if you want to control this until this is gone, we're going to have to segregate people who have it or don't have it, just so we can go back to normal operations. We don't want our operating rooms. Right now, when we do an angioplasty, it's an emergency angioplasty. Everybody's dressed in their spacesuit because there's a high risk of contamination. You certainly want to take down your first responders to this and get them sick. So we have, what we set up is we have teams we have 20 interventionalists. We have 5 teams of 4. So if a team goes down, we have another team that can go in. And we're just going to have to be real safe and careful going forward in the future.
Well, listen, I wish you luck with this. You'll do a great job. And again, congratulations. It's a great idea. And, I know the hospitals need it. So whatever we can do, we're proud of you guys. And again, we've been sitting here doing nothing. We've been sitting on our hands. So to people like you and all the people at the hospital and the people who are working around the clock at the hospital and are really in the middle of this, our hearts go out to you, and we thank you for all you've done, because, we've been sitting here and letting you guys, or allowing you guys to fight this thing every day while we do nothing. So I feel helpless in that regard. So you should be commended for all you guys have done, and hopefully you can get back to normal before too long.
Thank you, Mike. You have a great holiday. Take care.
Thank you, Doc.